build AI stuff in 2025? Cool. Do you have 1.5 lakh rupees for an RTX 4090? No, neither do I. So, over the past few weeks, I spent researching about GPU specs, budget cards, and squeezing performance out of cheap setups. And today in this video, I'll exactly share what I found and also list some budget AI GPUs which won't make your wallet cry. So, let's get started. And before starting, I'll exactly tell you what are the some important things that you need to keep in mind before actually buying a GPU. So we have some of the following components which you actually need to see before getting yourself a GPU. The first one of it is a VRAM. Now you'll think what exactly a VRAM is. VRAM is like a video RAM. Like we have RAMs on our systems for CPUs. Exactly in the similar fashion, we have something called VRAM in a GPU. It's like its own video memory in a GPU, right? Now, the higher the amount of VRAMs, the better the performance you can actually get out of your GPU, right? And the second thing, which won't be that important, is the number of tensor cores. Now, tensor cores is something like the efficiency cores which you have on your GPU. Like you may have 10,000s of them, maybe 5,000s of them, maybe 8,000s of them. So here also it follows the same simple equation. The more the number of tensor cores, the better your GPU performs. And obviously the price. Okay, like I would always suggest that if you're getting something of the older generation or the older series in a lesser price as compared to the same specs in a newer series or in the newer generation, I would always suggest you to go for the older series because like they can give you a much more of a better performance as compared to the newer series, right? So like now I'll exactly walk you through some of the video RAMs. Like I have actually distinguished the different GPUs on the basis of the different memory cards that they actually process, starting from 4 gigs up till 24 gigs, right? And even before starting this question, I'll like to address this question that many people ask me, like if we are out to buy a new GPU, which brand should we like prioritize? Is it AMD or is it NVIDIA? Well, the answer is very simple, and in one word, I would say NVIDIA. Because see, NVIDIA has something called CUDA architecture, and CUDA architecture is something which actually helps to improve the efficiency while you're training your machine learning or deep learning models, right? And AMD is kind of new to this race. Okay, AMD is a very recent brand that actually started building its own GPUs, and AMD is still way behind as compared to the CUDA architecture of NVIDIA. Well, AMD has its own architecture as well, which is also known as ROCm. But yeah, like CUDA does the job a little better, and also it has a wide community support, which actually helps you as well. And also the setup process of NVIDIA cards on a system for especially for machine learning and deep learning is a little much more easy. And well, if you have got the large community support, well, debugging stuff, and whenever you run into errors, you can actually get some solutions pretty much easier as compared to AMD's community support. Well, if you want, you can go for AMD's as well. I won't stop you either. But yeah, that's your personal choice because you have to go through a whole process of setting it up and going through all the bottlenecks if you want to go through it. All right. So now let's get started with all the different GPU things that I actually found on the internet, right? I have opened side by side Amazon India's webpage where like I can show you the prices. Okay, these prices are subjected to the time of the time actually I'm recording this video, which is July 2025, right? The prices might differ when you are watching this video. So yes, let's get started. Okay, so first category is 4 gigs of VRAM. Like this is a very introductory level of GPUs, and this is mostly found in the laptop GPUs. Okay, well, should you buy it? I would obviously say no. Like you should stretch your budget a little bit and go for either a 6 gigabytes of 8 or 8 gigabytes of RAM. But yeah, like if your gaming laptop already comes packaged with this, like the one that I have an Asus TUF A15 which has a 4 gigabytes of RTX 3050, right? um in an RTX 3050 with 4 gigs of VRAM, you can mostly do inference, like no training or stuff at all, like just pure inference of that too, of 4-bit quantized models, like no training or stuff like that. Like it's a very introductory level of GPU V card, and I would not recommend to actually buy this one. Okay, well, you can find lots of 4 gigs of VRAM online, which you can get for approximately 10,000 or 50,000 rupees. And yeah, like this is not recommended. Okay, I'll highlight this with red one. Okay, now comes 6 gigabytes and 8 gigabytes of RAM. Okay, 6 gigs and 8 gigs are like the beginner level of GPUs. Like if you get these kind of V cards, uh, well, all the basic stuff like I guess some LLMs with 4 billion parameters or like 5 billion parameters can easily be inferred on these GPU cards without the need of any quantizing, until and unless you are going for some model which has high level of parameters in it. And training, as for training, I guess basic computer vision models like ResNet and AlexNet can be easily trained with some 1000 images or 500 images. This can easily handle your job. Okay, now talking for some examples, uh, like this one, RTX 5060 8 gigs of VRAM. It gives you 8 gigs of RAM. Similarly, like you can also see this, like RTX 3050, which I obviously showed you above. It also has an 8 gigabytes of variant, which comes under around 19,000. And this one with the same V card, like with the same VRAM configuration, you can see like the price is almost double the price, right? So this is because, see, RTX 5060 and this is RTX 3050. It's almost 2 generations newer. So this obviously doesn't matter you that much when you are actually doing some machine learning or deep learning jobs. But yeah, if you are doing gaming, this matters a bit. But yeah, if you are doing machine learning, this obviously doesn't matter. What matters is like your VRAM. Higher the VRAM, better is the GPU card for you. All right. uh See, this is all 8 gigs of VRAM. Okay, everything is of 8 gigs of VRAM. Like this is 5060, again 8 gigs of VRAM, which is around 40,000 rupees. So yeah, if you're going for something which 8 gigs of VRAM, I would suggest, like, okay, you can go for something like 4060. I could say, like, if we come here, like I have the whole table of NVIDIA's 40 series lined up open, and now you can see the memory is over here, right? 4060, yes. So this is RTX 4060, which gives you around 8 gigabytes of RAM, and this costs around 40,000 to 50,000 rupees in India currently as of July 2025. Okay, then we come to our next, like these are okay, like I would say, like if you're just getting started with deep learning and machine learning, you can easily get this under 20,000 or under 30,000. Don't go for something 4060 or 5068. Go for something older models. Like I obviously would suggest you go for RTX 3050 over here, because yeah, you get a good decent VRAM memory and also in a cheaper price. So yeah, that's a good deal. Okay, I'll mark this an orangish layer. Okay, now 12 gigabytes of RAM. I guess this is the actual winner in a budget GPU range, which is our RTX 3060. I'll show you. Okay, yeah. So this is RTX 3060, which comes with 12 gigabytes of VRAM and around 8,000, around 3,000 tensor cores, I guess. Yeah, around 3,000 tensor cores, and with a decent price of 27,000. Like you can see, like this is much more cheaper as compared to RTX 5060, which only gives you 8 gigabytes of VRAM, right? So yeah, that was I was talking about. Like if you are getting a card with a higher VRAM, which is a little older as compared to a card which is a very new card with a little less VRAM as compared to the old card, and the price is, and in the obvious cases, the price for the old card will be obviously lesser as compared to the newer card, right? So I'll obviously suggest you to go with something like this. Okay. And if you are actually looking for a budget GPU for machine learning and deep learning, like this is the card, this is your card, like this is the card that you actually should go for and work on, right? This is a literal good deal, like 27,000 to 30,000 rupees, and you are getting around 12 gigs of RAM. Like most of the jobs of machine learning and deep learning actually gets done. You can actually infer models up till 7 billion parameters, like LLMs up till 7 billion parameters, and also a little bit of training for 4 billion parameters and 5 billion parameters can be easily carried out on these cards, right? So this is like the most user friendly, budget friendly GPU will actually get in today's market as of July 2025. Okay, so this is like a good card. I'll give this a yellow card. Now anything above 12 gigabits of VRAM comes under the category of a mid to high tier of GPU, right? Now 16 gigabytes of VRAM and 24 gigabytes of VRAM are actually a little costlier. I'll say starting from 70,000 rupees, and like there's no upper limit for GPU cards, right? So I'll show you. For this I'll open up the chart for this one. Okay, as you can see, like if I open up the 30 series cards, okay, 3050 had two versions, two variants. RTX 3050 had two variants, 8 gigabytes of RAM and 6 gigabytes of RAM. Okay, and both of them the NVIDIA CUDA cores, like, and both of them had decent NVIDIA CUDA cores. But yeah, the memory is obviously very beginner level, as I already said. Good to go cards, but only for beginners. All right. Now, if I, as I already mentioned, 3060. Now, if I'm wanting to go for something which is in budget as well as does your job pretty much well, so we can go for a 3060, which has 12 gigabytes of variant as well as 8 gigs of variant, and with a decent amount of 10 CUDA cores, which is around 3584, like works. Okay, now anything higher than it, like you can see, like even the versions which are much more higher than 3060 has got lesser amount of VRAM size, but more number of CUDA cores. Now I'll tell you, like CUDA cores is something like which only increases the time needed, like it actually decreases the time required for your machines to be trained. Like this is the only job for NVIDIA CUDA cores, and actually makes your whole training process a little more optimized. Okay, but if you really talk about something which will actually help you in the long run, I would say go for a higher VRAM, right? You can see the whole table here. Okay, like RTX 3090 is the best if you go for 24 gigabytes of RAM, but yeah, it costs a hell lot of money. I guess around 2.5 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees currently in India. Okay, RTX 3080 Ti has also its 12 gigs of variant, but I'm sure this would cost a lot. Like let's check RTX 3080 Ti. Yeah, as you can see, like it's around almost close to 1 lakh rupees, right? And see, like you can also get 16 gigs of RAM, as I already said. Like starting for the 16 gigs of RAM, you can start getting this from around 60,000 rupees and upwards. Okay, 16 gigs of VRAM, like if we go for 16 gigs of VRAM, you can see if we go in the 30 series, we don't have any 16 gigs of VRAM over here. Okay, now looking in the 40 series, 16 gigs of VRAM actually start from 4070 Ti Super. Okay, now if we go for RTX 4080 maybe. Okay, let's check the price. Well, like yes, like you can see the price. Okay, and similarly for 5070, like see the same VRAM. Okay, 12 gigs of VRAM in 5070 as well, and 12 gigs of VRAM in say 3060 as well. But yeah, the price, just because of the memory, it can actually, the TFLOPs which we say, like how fast data actually transmits from the GPU to the RAM, to the RAM to the GPU, and obviously the CUDA cores. This is the only main factor which increases the price of the same configured like the same VRAM configured GPUs. Okay, so like yeah, like if in the 40 series you're looking for to buy a GPU, I would suggest like you can go for something with either 4070 Ti or 4070 Super also works well. But yeah, like you can see, just a matter of CUDA cores is the difference. Okay, And anything in the 50 series, obviously, like you can see, like we have got up till 32 gigabytes of DDR7 VRAM. But yeah, like I would suggest anything above 12 gigs is something which are working in the higher territory zone, and you can mostly get all of the job done for machine learning and deep learning. Like you can also work with stable diffusion version 2s, and maybe also train more billion parameter models, like maybe 12 billion parameter or 32 billion parameter also. So this is the whole thing, right? Now, but if you're looking something to just go and buy and like get started with machine learning, I'll obviously suggest choose any of this. Okay, and like if you can afford this, I would highly recommend you to stretch a little bit and go for a 12 gigs of VRAM card, which is obviously a 3060 RTX 3060, which falls in the budget as well and also gives you a pretty decent performance, right? So yeah, like this was all I would say, and this was all about the GPU part. This was a quick video I thought of making because a lot of the guys who are just getting started with machine learning and deep learning, they obviously think that okay, we might require a hell lot of resources to get started with something with Gen AI or maybe in this field. But I'll obviously say no. Like you just need a decent setup. In fact, if you don't even have the money to go online for a GPU, I would say like to work on platforms which actually give you free GPUs, like Google Colab, Kaggle. Okay, like these are some platforms which you can actually get some free resources, free hours of GPU working, maybe around 30 hours say per week, and yeah, that also pretty much gets your job done, right? So yeah, this was all about it, and in the next video I'm thinking to again start with neuroschema, and yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. This was all about the video. I hope this video has helped you determining which kind of a GPU you can actually go for without spending some extra bucks. And yeah, thank you for watching.